hey, while I'm at it, I'm gonna do one more, which is about why self-work is so important. And do not turn this off if you are like, yes, I understand why self-work is so important. When I went to grad school, I really wanted to be in solution-focused therapy because there was this like, okay, the insurance company pays for it really fast, and then they get in and they get out, and it's supposed to be this quick fix. And I really thought, to some degree, I had this programming that my family had, that therapy was quackery, and that like if you needed that, you were a rich person who had no problems. And I just really fell in line, despite that I was going to school to be a therapist, with like, let's get this show on the road and actually heal so we can move on, right? Instead of understanding the nature of cycles and rhythms and nature, like the laws of the universe, right? So my favorite work is working with people over years and really seeing what they create. And there's this very fine line between, a lot of people come to me when they're about to either implode their total life because they just like, it's well enough that they're bored, right? And they're either going to implode or they're going to find a new distraction that's going to be the excuse that they imploded, right? So they come to me going, okay, I've done enough self-work to like be at this place where I can go, okay, I live in a kind of good situation. And they think, oh, I know everything about myself, basically. I just want to like figure out how to relate that to the world. And 100% of the time, when I work with somebody, they go, oh my God, that's like wild is what the term that they usually use, or like my mind is, you know, blowing right now. So self-work is important because the shadow, right? The shadow is in there if you are a codependent and you're walking around like, I'm such a good person and I just have to be a good person and then I'll be loved and then people won't leave me and then I'll be connected to people. And there's a very large gap, even with people who've done 40 years of self-work, right? Between what they think and what they actually think, what their energy is saying and what their cognitions are saying. So I recently started working with somebody who had a really fascinating reflection about a chapter in Earn Your Luck. She said, one of the things that I didn't resonate was this chapter on basically you are what you judge. She said, I don't judge people. And of course we got to this long thing in which, one, I want everybody to recognize, like, if you judge yourself, you bet your ass you're judging somebody else for that same thing. You just think that you're good enough not to do that thing, right? So, and also, when you are judging yourself, you are a somebody that you're judging. So if you think, I'm not a judgmental person, think about all the things that you judge about yourself, okay? You can start there. And then take it one step further. If you think you're not a judgmental person, you can say, I wouldn't want to be that thing, right? Like there's always going to be something that you go, oh, I'm grateful for my position because I wouldn't want to be that thing. And that's a judgment because you're placing some sense of your own sense onto that thing, which you could say I'm placing my sense of lack onto that thing. Like if you walk by somebody's yard that's really trashed up and you're like, ew, I'm grateful for my position because I'm having this sense of lack for them. You're still placing a judgment. I used to, when I first started my practice, besides letting people pay me what they wanted, I had an abundance bowl. I called it my abundance bowl. I couldn't even say the word money in business, okay? And the reason that's important is because I wasn't getting real with the fact I was in business. I was doing it anyway. I was doing the thing that I was afraid to be doing. I was just ashamed that I was doing it, right? I was taking money being in business, but because I have judgments about money, I felt ashamed. So I'm thinking, here's my abundance bowl, you know, here, instead of saying like, here's where you put the money, thank you very much for this very valuable service that I'm doing, I'd be like, oh, please, when you can, yes, here's my abundance bowl. Not real at all about the fact that I needed to feed my children, right? And most of the people that I work with were very capable of feeding their own children, right? But I would feel bad for them. I would feel like I was doing something wrong, right? So at the end of our conversation, this girl reminded me of this because she said she has a friend who is overweight and she couldn't say fat. She couldn't bring herself to say it, but she's saying it nicely, right? So when you don't know what you judge, so for codependent, we actually want to tag things in the outer world that we judge, because our job is to meet life in the middle. Like, instead of being in this place of hiding in the background of ourselves, we want to come to the forefront. And we're not trying to outshine anybody, but we want to at least step into our life instead of constantly backing away from it when people look like they're coming on in, and we give them room to do so, right? So we want to actually engage in life by meeting in the middle. And if you have a big gap between what your subconscious is saying and what your consciousness is saying, your insides don't match your outsides, basically, even in your own mind. And there's a real serious wobble in the energy system. So another thing about this, why self-work is so important, is because when you know, so I recently found out that I have 2 MTHFR mutations. And I 100% believe you can change your genes. 100%, right? So I'll take the information, great information. I have MTHFR, but you know what I'm gonna do with that information? I'm gonna mitigate my environment for that mutation. I'm not gonna just be like, well, let me just dump a whole bunch of toxic metals into my body and like eat a bunch of chemical foods. I'm going to be sensitive to the fact that I have a sensitivity in that particular area that, if I'm responsible, I should attune with. And I had a different conversation with somebody the other day about jealousy and wanting to get into a relationship, but not wanting to be jealous and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And what I said to this person is like, what self-work for me has been, and I'm going to flip this on its head right now for everybody, because it is an inversion almost, where you go back to being the child that you were and just being comfortable with your innate tendencies, and they're not nearly as bad as you were talked into like thinking that they were, right? So the inversion of that is, we do not need to stretch our jealousy. I've done this before, right? I've intentionally put myself in situations that were going to trigger everything about my life, and guess what I don't do now? Right? I don't do that because I mitigate for my innate tendencies, which I only find out through self-work, through self-development. So if I'm a person, and this isn't particularly me, but if I'm a person who is jealous in relationship, I don't do self-work to try to mitigate for my jealousy, to troubleshoot for my jealousy. I mitigate my environment so that my jealousy isn't triggered. So I'm not going to find a partner if I go, oh, I'm too jealous to be in a relationship, can't be in a relationship. Guess what you're going to try? A partner who makes you jealous. If you go, I am a jealous person in relationships, and I walk it, talk it, own it, guess what you're not going to attract? Somebody who makes you jealous, right? Because you're going to know yourself and you're going to be like, yes, I am that thing. There's no wibble wobble between, oh my God, I shouldn't be a jealous person, but I kind of am, and that means I'm bad and I shouldn't do this thing. No, that's wobbly, right? So self-work is amazing because when you learn about yourself, you know where your edges are, which I would invite you to take soul centering after toxic shame if you're attracted to this. You'll know what your edges are. You'll meet life exactly where it is, instead of cowering to it constantly. And you can walk around shamelessly saying, yes, I am jealous. Yes, I have MTHFR. I'm not going to shame myself all day and try to change that fact about myself. I'm going to mitigate for that reality, right? So the idea in this situation would be, find a partner who's not going to make you jealous. And that's super possible through self-work when you know what you are, because that person is going to go, I know what she is, or he is, primarily she, I know what she is, and I never make her squirm like that because I know her and I love her. When you know yourself like that, you will be loved like that because you will be all in here. You'll be all here, right? At the forefront, and there's no hiding, and there's no room for wobble or other people to get in, or the shame of like, this is what I am and maybe I shouldn't be that. Self-work is amazing, not because it helps you change yourself, but because it helps you accept yourself. And when you accept yourself, and only when you accept yourself, is when you can change yourself. So self-work is not a sham. Having a partner to reflect to you, having a therapist or somebody to reflect to you what they're seeing in you, so that you can recognize the mirror of your own life and go, oh, didn't see that one, right? that is priceless. Information about yourself is priceless. So that's another thing I wanted to say. One of the judgments that came out of this person who thought that they weren't judgmental was self-centered people. And my website says get real centered, right? So the idea actually is that most codependent people are other-centered. What makes that more right than being self-centered, right? When you are self-centered, then you have a way of relating the self to the world. But if you're always other-centered, where you're like, oh, what are they thinking of me? I feel bad for this person because what might they be going through? And you negate what you're going through. That is distortion. It's not like you're a better person for doing that. So the objective would be to get into the self so that you can actually relate to the other. But most people of my demographic are hopping out of themselves and into another and thinking that enmeshment is called relating. That's not called relating. It's called suffocating, okay? So, yeah, self-work, my God, it's freaking priceless. It's valuable, it's necessary, and we always grow. I learn something new every single day, and the territory of myself expands my kingdom in the outer world. I read a nice Nin thing the other day that said, like, one's world expands or contracts based on the level of their courage. This is also true in the inner world. Most people don't, they go, I didn't want to see that. No, that's not me. That's not me. When really, what's being reflected to them is a lot of people are seeing that, and that's actually what you are. And that's the other thing about this is most people that I work with are already doing the thing, like me in business, they're already doing the thing that they want to be doing. They're just shaming themselves for doing it so they don't let themselves enjoy what they're doing, right? So in the context of like, I'm living with a partner that my parents don't approve of before marriage, right? But they're doing it and they can't enjoy what they're doing because there's all this shame attached to it. So my work is to get people here. Like, dude, you're actually doing that thing. Own it. Like, you're actually already rebelling. So rebel against the inner mind that's telling you that you should feel shameful for doing this very normal, natural thing that's normal and natural for you and your physical body and your life, right? So, God, the work is freaking priceless. And it's super fun. It's my favorite thing in the world. So, I hope this was helpful. Bye.